Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to invite you guys to go ahead and stand with us. Hopefully, as we sing this song out, you'll start to wake up a little bit. Wandering into the night, wanting a place to hide the sweet sound.
My name is Jim. I've been here at Kensington for about 18 years, and most recently I went through an Alpha course. I had invited 4 younger people to attend Alpha with me. A few of them were new to the faith and kind of just exploring, just watching their eyes and watching them react to some of the content in Alpha. Excitement, curiosity, felt that they were really getting a great understanding of who Jesus was and his love for us. It's a great introduction to Christianity, but at the same time, for people that have been around for a long time, it's a perfect little refresher course, because I definitely feel that a lot of us in my generation need to seek out the younger population today and have some answers for them when they ask. And I feel like Alpha has equipped me with that, and really I think has made discipleship a little less complicated than I think many of us make it out to be. I have found that these groups are essential to me to really understand the process of living out my faith on a weekly basis.
Morning, everybody. How are you? I got a woo in the front. That's pretty solid. Thanks, Mr. Michael. Hey, my name's Adam. For those of you that don't know, I'm one of the pastors here on staff, and I just want to start off by saying welcome to church. We're so glad you're here. And for those of you that come a little bit more frequently, maybe this week and last, you know that our lobby space is a little bit set up differently than you're accustomed to seeing it. That's because in the fall, we have a lot of things kind of relaunch. And one of those is our groups and care and initiative teams that have kind of taken over a little bit of a break. And we wanted to highlight those today. And that's just what you saw up there on the video. We had somebody who went through one of our Alpha programs or courses that kind of helps with this idea of where the church and different questions we ask. Because here's something that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. Have you already ever been in a church and there's like a hard question? Or something that's a little bit of challenging, they just kind of skirt right over it, right? It's like this big thing in the middle of the road, and it just gets moved past. Well, see, Alpha is a thing where you can go and attend. It's a class where we deal with those questions in more of a group element, where you have the opportunity to ask questions, and actually each week we're tackling one of those questions, so where you could be like Jim, where you say, hey, after I was through it, I kind of got in this space where I was a little bit more comfortable, or actually quite a bit more comfortable sharing my faith, because I knew and I'd been equipped with some of the good answers. So whether you've been coming to church for decades, you're brand new, or maybe you're not even sure about Jesus, I would encourage you to go ahead, talk with the people at the tables in this fall season, get jumped into one of them. If you're not sure, would love for you to plug into Alpha. The Buckners, Steve and Sandy, are going to be leading that. I'm actually going to be there starting off a little bit next week as well. I just think it's a great opportunity for us to stand a little bit more of the why behind some things. And I believe when we catch the why, there's some power in that. So would love to encourage you, jump in an Alpha or in one of our other groups. Hey, with fall, lots of things coming up. We have a faith and family initiative that's going to be coming forward in the next couple of weeks. And you can go to kensingtonchurch.org/faith and family to get some more of the details. But how many people feel super equipped to handle the technology issue that your young children have to deal with today? Anybody super equipped? Not many hands, right? Yeah, so this is a moment where we can kind of take that on. We have an expert from an organization called Protect Young Eyes. His name is Chris McKenna. He's going to come in and have this one-time event with us, and we're going to do more throughout the year where we deal with the issue of, for our children ages 5th grade up to 12th, how we handle this technology that's now in their hands all the time. Because even if we do a fantastic job as a parent, they always have a friend. There's always somebody else who's carrying a phone, and we want to press in with what we think is really a great tool to help you in that endeavor. So we'd love to have you for that. You can go to that link and get all the details. It's going to be at the Troy location. They'll have dinner and childcare provided. We'd love to invite you out to that. We also have in this fall season some retreats coming up, some weekend things, and I want to highlight 3 of them and then focus in on one. We have Man Camp. We have Wild, which is going to be more geared towards our youth, and then Rise, which is for young adults to 18-29, but I'm highlighting Man Camp because that's the one I'm going to. So, hey, for all of you men, who's competitive? Wives, are you competitive? Raise your hand. Okay, if you're a competitive man or you're a competitive wife, you got to get your man to come to man camp, because this is that moment where we have bragging rights throughout the whole year if we dominate the other campuses in the competition. So I have a selfish motive to get you to come, but it's also a great time to build some relationship dynamic. We're going to eat tons of food that is not great for us, and it's going to be a really wonderful weekend just getting to know each other and having some competition. Would love to see you out there. I'm going to be there kind of leading the CT team, and we're going to come back telling stories of how we trashed everybody else. So put that on your calendar, do some push-ups and sit-ups to get ready for Man Can coming up. And then also this week, we've got midweek, which is just an opportunity for us to come out, learn a little bit more about God's word, have an extended time of worship. I'm going to be teaching, kind of taking a riff off of Psalm 23 and some of the things that Jesus said in John and how they mix together. Would love to have you out for that. And if you have any questions about anything I said, stop at the hub in the lobby. They can give you more details, answer your questions, or if you're new or a guest, we've never had the opportunity to interact with you, we would love that chance. They even have a little something for you just to say thanks for being here. I want to ask everybody to stand up and take a minute to shake hands, but before you do that, after you do this, we're going to have a video that's going to show some of the global outreach that we have had this year. So stake up Shan's hands when the video comes on, sit down and check it out.
The earth is a big place. There are a lot of needs out there. Sometimes we may feel small when trying to make a difference.
But when we come together as one community, we can do amazing things. Join us as we reflect again on the past year and the impact Kensington Church has made on communities all around the world. Kensington has 11 global partners who are doing incredible work in the name of Jesus. We are committed to leaping the cultural divide and flying that great distance to build authentic community with these men and women.
And the beautiful thing about real community grounded in Jesus, it's contagious. We're in community with our global partners, and we're enabling them to build healthy communities in their respective countries.
When we started our Global Partners program almost 20 years ago, we had a vision of partnering with Indigenous leaders. Rather than Kensington starting something new, we wanted to partner with people that knew the language, that knew the culture, that knew their communities the best. So we developed relationships with some incredible partners along the way. We know their families, we know their dreams. We spend time together as often as we can.
Our partnership in one Latin American island nation, undisclosed for security, is supporting a church planting movement that has reached more than 148,000 people with the gospel, and with more than 15,000 individuals making the choice to become followers of Jesus. In 2021, 849 new churches were started, which will continue reaching more people with the good news of Jesus. This year, our global partner in Afghanistan has experienced fear, violence, but also God's faithfulness. As one of the most unreached countries in the world, our partnership with Big Life is igniting the house church movement and discipling new believers at great personal risk. When the Taliban established control in August of 2021, we collected emergency funds to support Big Life in the aiding and evacuating of more than 38,000 people during this period of extreme violence and danger.
We had people starting to contact Big Life saying, you guys are going to need some help. We're going to start raising some money. We had people outside of our organization that just started raising money for us. Kensington Church stepped up and said, we need to help with this as well, and we need to send you some money to help with this rescue efforts.
Kensington's oldest global partner is Christ Evangelical Mission near Rajahmundry, India. CEM provides holistic care to the poorest of India through medical care, education, orphan care, skill training, ministry training, and church planning, and also caring for the abandoned elderly. This spring, CEM held a huge dedication celebration for the opening of the new Agape Old Age Home. This new building, which will house 90 elders when full, is now in use with each elder having a personal bedroom and bathroom. We love supporting this organization as they give elders in India more than a roof, but also a loving community and dignity during their final years.
Our newest global partner is also in the country of India. We have been partnering with the Timothy Initiative to support the house church movement in northern India for just over a year.
The results? Over 1,500 churches have been planted, and nearly 18,000 people have come to know Jesus.
Since 2003, we have partnered with Pokot Outreach Ministries to reach the Pokot people of Western Kenya. This organization focuses on orphan care, church planting, women's empowerment, and clean water initiatives. Kensington's own Hope Water Project supports the digging of clean water wells in this harsh region of the world.
In April of this year, 2 more wells were dug, literally changing the lives of thousands. And the money for a third well was just raised through the 5K and Fun Run events.
All this that we are doing, the greatest support comes from Kensington. And even the seeds that we distributed to the farmers last year, many families received the seeds, 1,400 families. But above that, I was telling them it was an opportunity. We leverage all this to point to Jesus and the love of Jesus.
We also saw an incredible turnout for Zero Tolerance Day on February 6th. More than 2,000 people gathered in a remote village to take a stand against the practice of female genital mutilation. Our global partner in Nepal, Our Daughters International, is changing lives, especially the lives of women. It is estimated that up to 35,000 girls are trafficked from Nepal each year, and our partner is making incredible strides against this evil. They are educating whole communities, monitoring border stations in search of the vulnerable, rescuing victims, and rehabilitating women in safe homes where they are counseled, educated, and equipped to lead. In just this past year alone, over 14,000 girls were counseled at the border between Nepal and India. 98 girls were rescued, and a new safe home was opened.
Thank you, Kensington Community Church family. Thank you so much for your generous support. Thank you so much for your prayers. And I'm right now standing in front of the building, and that is a safe house. And we are ready now welcoming the daughters from those who are trafficked, those who have been abused, and now gonna come here and start seeing their dream again in their life. They would be happy, they would be laughing, they would be running around, and they would get a new life here. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much for your prayer support. Thank you so much for standing beside these daughters to see their life regenerated again. Thank you, in Jesus' name. We just pray that this building will be a place of transformation. Thank you again for your help.
One of the greatest impacts on my life was in the year 2000 when our founding pastor, Steve Andrews, and I dragged our young daughters to India. I had never been out of the country, I think, except to Canada. And here I found myself on the other side of the world and was experiencing things I'd never experienced before. And literally it broke my heart. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, for days and days when I came back, I just wept with what I experienced there. And I believe God had put it in my heart to make a difference in that part of the world. And that gave birth to what Kensington now calls our global impact strategy, which is to find people who have a calling from God, a vision from God to make an impact in their area of the world, for us to come alongside of them, and most importantly, build friendship, get to know them, build relationship, lifelong, deep, committed relationship with them, and then for us to ask God, what do you want us to do to support them? How can we resource them? And now, every year, in 11 places, we are having impact through our global partners. It's really their work, but we support them in this work. And I think one of the beautiful things that happens, like it did for me, is it changes our lives. My whole direction of my life changed because of what I experienced in India. And so we invite you to consider how you might participate. And actually, many of you already have. You've participated in a variety of ways, and we are so grateful. And I just want to say thank you for that. But as you watch those images, I'm praying that something stirred in your heart, that there was some nudge you felt, that you need to go, you need to experience this, or you need to support this in some way. I would say to you, listen to that in the coming year. Respond to God. What is He saying to you? How can you make a difference, not just here, but some other place in the world? And again, I just want to express my gratitude for all that you saw there does not happen without you, and we are so grateful.
Pretty amazing stuff. Really interesting. But I find myself focusing on one of the things that Craig said. The thing that wrecked him, the thing that changed him is when he got up and he went. Drug his daughters with him to a foreign country, a place they really had no need to go to. But when he got there, something in him started to change. I think it's something that Drew will talk about today as we tackle this topic about getting well. But my hope for you, for a lot of us in this room, is maybe you'll start to feel a nudge. Maybe you'll feel a nudge, and like he said, this year there'll be a time where God asks you to step out, maybe to go or to help support somebody to go or to do something so that a life can be changed. Because it won't just be the people that you go see and help that'll be impacted. As Craig said, it'll be us on our own. So we're really thankful for all of you, because the only reason we are able to do these things and take these trips is because of people who come alongside of us and are on mission with us. So we're going to ask our ushers to go ahead and start to receive our offering today. And as they do that, I just want to highlight one ministry, one thing that we're able to do because of those of you that partner alongside of us. How many of us have heard of McCrest? Yeah, for those of you that haven't, McCrest stands for Macomb County Rotating Emergency Shelter Team. And what they do is throughout the year, they go to different locations, and they're going to come to our building, and they're going to open it during the night so homeless people have a warm place to stay. You see, sometimes we don't think about some of those details that are very pertinent to life because they're so normal, so typical for us that we don't have to. But the reality is in our area, there are both men, women, and children that don't have that basic luxury that we all have. So what we do is we open our building and we partner with them. And one of the reasons we're able to do that is because of your financial gifts. So thank you for that. But I also want to extend another invitation to you, much like the one you heard from Craig. You see, sometimes we actually have to go and do something for some of that life change to happen. And if you exit the auditorium in the back left, closer to the great room, you're going to see a big white board. And we have a couple of volunteers there who are looking for an army of people to come help us put on this week where they come to our building. We need people that can prepare food, people who can do security, people who can just sit across the table and have a conversation with somebody who maybe doesn't have the opportunity to do that. Because we want to press into them, because we believe when you press in and you meet the practical need of somebody, that then you have the opportunity to share Jesus with them. So my hope is that after you hear Drew and after we sing, you'll walk back there and you would just take a step and go out and see, where might I be able to plug in and help? Because we believe that might even be part of this step that Craig referred to, that we all have to go through, of us getting to a place where we're a little bit more well, which is what Drew is going to talk about with us today. But before he comes, we've got a little video that just kind of teases out this idea in a humorous way. So join us, watch it together, and then he's going to come share with us this morning. the most hilarious thing about this is that's actually a staff member from Kensington's car that actually has all those problems. Now, if you don't know me, my name's Drew. I'm so thankful to be here with you. I help lead with our 18 through 29-year-old ministry. And honestly, this is what we're talking about today, is that so many of us have problems or unwanted issues, unwanted emotions in our life that are just so much easier just to avoid and pretend like they're not there, but it's very clear that they are affecting us whether we want them to or not. And we're in this series called Questions Jesus Asked, and he asks a man who is unwell, unhealed, he asks him, do you want to get well? That's what we're talking about today. Now, I have a question for you. Who has ever taken 9 months to do a task that probably just takes 5 minutes? So this is a spiritual experience we're all having. See, for me and my wife, we have a saying that says, if we don't do it now, we will never do it, right? How many of you just know you need to call that doctor, make that appointment, sign up for that class, pay off that driving ticket, because you know how you Christians drive. It's so inconvenient to take care of the little things. And so it's no surprise to any of us, right? If it's even inconvenient to take care of the little things, how much easier is it to avoid the bigger, more overwhelming things that just aren't painful enough? Am I right? Can I get an amen? It hurts, just not enough yet. So we can avoid it a little bit longer, and it's a good strategy, to just avoid it. But as we're talking about the idea of personal healing, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, for the emotional injuries, the real injuries we carry, the biggest enemy to our personal healing is the word when. When the fall slows down, when my kids really get into the rhythm of school, when they start to do all their healing, because they're the ones who have the problems. I wouldn't have these problems if they didn't have those problems. So when they do it, then I'll be ready to do it, right? What about when God decides to show up for the prayer that he has not answered, and he promised that he answer that prayer? All of us have this word when, and the word when assumes that there's a more ideal time for us to actually work on ourselves and the things that we need to work on. It assumes that there's a more ideal circumstance than there is in the present. Now, for me, with my when, for a long time was when someone just chooses to validate, listen to all the problems. Now, I love to be introspective, talk about my issues. And I went through a pretty large personal journey in the year 2019, and the thing I believed was simply being able to process and vent about all the emotion that was going on. That would be healing enough. Now, in the year 2019, I was probably at the height of the success in my life. I work with young adults. This was pre-COVID, so we had roughly anywhere from 150 to 200 young adults attending our weekly Tuesday night gathering that meets at 7 p.m. at our Troy location, if you are a young adult. And we even have a conference coming up for young adults that's partnered with other young adult ministries in the Metro Detroit area, meeting at the Troy location on September 30th and October 1st, which we have Joe L. Barnes from Maverick City Worship actually leading us in a worship concert. So please, it's $30. But who had any, why are we there except for a shameless plug? Either way, I was just describing the height of my success. That's where I was. Let me continue. I was at the height of my personal success, feeling like things were awesome. But I was at the low in my soul and my spirit because I was feeling like it wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. And if I was being honest with myself, I was struggling with my faith and in my relationship with God. I had a lot of doubts as it pertained to just prayers that I felt like he hadn't answered, ways he hadn't shown up. And I was avoiding it between me and God, and that was leaking into even my personal ministry. And what that made me do is it made me perform. It made me feel like I had to give messages for people to get amens, to get hand claps, to get applauses, to say things that I thought people wanted to hear so that I could even feel my own sense of validation, because clearly that's what people want to hear, or that style or that rhetoric or that passion or that emotion that I would give would be more effective. And that's what people really needed, right? People wanted to hear the things that maybe felt good. To the point where I even had a Kensington leader pull me aside and say, Drew, if I'm honest with you, I know you. I feel like you're performing. Because the Drew I know, he's careful, he's thoughtful, he likes to maybe be a little more intellectual, but the Drew I'm seeing here just doesn't seem congruent with the one who I always knew. And I held back tears as I, had to dab the corner of my eyes and do the bachelorette cry, because I didn't, I just had to keep my makeup from spoiling, proverbially speaking. And he was right. Everything I did was to perform. Everything I was doing was to seek validation, not because I was speaking from any type of, there was authenticity, but it wasn't my authenticity. It wasn't what God was showing me and teaching me because I was so in my own unhealth. And additionally, it made my job so much harder because I was angry. I was bitter. I felt like I couldn't control things. I blamed myself that I didn't have more confidence and courage to do the things I needed to do as a leader, to confront the things I needed to confront. Maybe you feel this way in your marriage or your family where you don't have the confidence, you don't have the heart, or maybe even you don't feel like you have the backbone to say the things that need to be said, to do the things that need to be done. And in the process, I became very angry and bitter. And I'd go home, and this is at a point in my marriage to my wife where we were feeling exasperated and exhausted. And I did the whole thing where I basically created an excuse around every point of the day of why I couldn't connect and talk. You know this? Where I was like, no, I can't connect in the morning because I'm not even a Christian until I've had my coffee. So I can't talk in the morning. I'm just not a morning person. And then during the workday, I'm on the grind. I'm on the clock. Like I can't focus. I'm too busy to be texting you about what I'm doing. And when I come home, I just want space. I just got done with a really long day, so I don't want to talk after work. And then before I go to bed, that's the only time I have for introversion and just to mindlessly numb and scroll on my phone because that's really where I get happy. And so my whole life was endlessly scrolling when I'd get home, numbing, avoiding, watching TV, and even weirdly for me, and this is kind of embarrassing because I don't know if I've even really explored this or mentioned this until this week, but I began to binge eat. And in the year 2019, I gained 20 pounds alone. And in this year, it wasn't even that I binge ate because I couldn't help myself. At one point, I actively, consciously, purposefully made a decision that I would try to gain as much weight as I possibly could and to destroy my body as a way of punishing myself and punishing the world for the amount of, not having an amount of control that I wish I had, and hoping that someone might notice as a weird kind of subconscious way of a cry for help. And even just my wife would notice, and I would respond with this bitterness of, well, nothing really matters, so I guess this doesn't matter then either. And it came to a point where we found out we were pregnant to boot in 2019 in the summer. And I remember driving, and I remember sitting in the parking lot space of our apartment at the time. And I remember saying out loud to my wife, I need to go to therapy. And the reason why, and I said this, I'll never forget this. I said, I need to go to therapy because if I can't be emotionally responsive to you, and if I can't control my reactions with you as a matured, capable, thoughtful adult, I will never be emotionally responsive and control my reactions with an immatured, not capable child who, as a toddler, will literally protest everything imaginable, things you could never think a toddler could protest. They will protest and push your buttons and not obey pretty much everywhere that you go. Your house could be on fire, and you'd have to get at eye level and be like, I know the house is burning down, and I know that makes you mad, huh, that daddy's forcing you out. But it's time to go. Can you please come with daddy? So I went. And if I'm honest with you, I love talking about myself. To quote our founder, Steve Andrews, I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. And I was in this place where I'm like, I'm excited just to get in the weeds and just like express all my pain. And this is my misconception. I believe that if I just emptied out all my feelings and emotions, which is a part of the healing process and necessary, if I just got to just sit and bite down on all of it, that would be healing. Guess what? It ain't. Because it's one thing to be honest, it's another thing to then do the changing. It's one thing to get out of the pit. It's another thing to then have to go build a house and build a life for yourself. Because guess what? It's one thing to be in the operating room of surgery to correct the problem, but then you have to go to physical therapy to work out the muscles that led to the back problem in the beginning in the first place. Because for me, I'd spent 30 years in a way of thinking and a way of living, or a way of organizing my internal world and emotions that had led me to a place that led me to be unhealthy and destructive to my own body. It's another thing to not binge eat. It's another thing to work out, diet, exercise to become healthy and have a great life. It's one thing to not hate your spouse for some of us. It's another thing to have a great marriage that is fulfilling, rich with love and intimacy. Do you see what I'm saying? And there's a misconception. I had an ideal of how healing should look, but there's another way that it actually happens. And I think this is the misconception for all of us in faith when it comes to our personal healing journey. Jesus can ask us, do you want to be well? And we might romanticize an instance or a one-time encounter or a prayer session or a message from a pastor that changes our life so utterly, so radically that we'll never be the same, and it takes care of the problem. But it's another thing to engage in a lifestyle of healing at the feet of Jesus and to present our shame to the throne over and over again, to present our unwanted emotions, our unwanted reactions to Jesus in a continuous lifestyle. And this is exactly what happened at the story of the man who'd been paralyzed or unable to walk for 38 years. Similarly to me, for 30 years, he'd been waiting. And this was in a time when Jesus was visiting Jerusalem because there was a Jewish festival, and he was attending. But it's interesting to note that Jesus found his way to the place where all of those who were unwell or unhealthy or sick or disabled in some fashion gathered, because there was a myth that likely is true. There's some early manuscripts that support this in biblical literature, but not all of them. But it's likely that people believed that at this pool that's called Bethesda, a 5-sided pool, that every once in a while, from time to time, an angel of God would come and stir the waters of this pool, and the first person to enter the pool would be healed. It'd be curative to whatever ailed them. And so everyone's gathered there just waiting and pining for their own personal healing. And Jesus goes there knowing that all of this is happening. And he encounters one man who'd been there for 30 years. It starts like this. It says, sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 colonnades. And here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. And one who was there had been invalid for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? You think he'd say, absolutely, why wouldn't I? But this is not even in his register that this was possible in this moment. He's only thinking in the construct of where he is. He goes, sir, whoa, but I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. Well, I am trying to get in. Someone else goes down ahead of me. And then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat and walk. And at once the man was cured, and he picked up his mat and he walked. Now there are 2 misinterpretations, I believe, are very easy to bite down on when it comes to this passage. When we read the story of a healing, there might be 2 tempting thoughts for any person really diving into the story because it just might be so easy to believe. And here's the first misinterpretation. Are you ready? Number 1, that this man was waiting around and not trusting in God for 38 years. I mean, right? Like you can almost hear the pastor voice. 38 years, right? I mean, some of us are waiting around for someone else to bring healing into our life. We're waiting for some pool to bring our healing, and we're not looking at Jesus. Can you hear that message already? Thank you. That was good. You thought you liked that? That was good. That could preach, probably, yeah. But here's the truth, right? That's not true. The guy had no idea who Jesus was. As far as he knows, it's just some Jewish man. Maybe he looked like a rabbi, but he's just another guy who's approaching him. And in fact, this man was doing the only thing he could do by sitting at this pool. I mean, this is your only route to healing, this one pool. And it's not like it's not like he wasn't trying, but why would someone else forfeit their opportunity to get healed to bring him in? So what might be easy to judge and then wrongly apply to us and sit in our own judgment of why we haven't gotten healed is because he actually was trapped. And I think this is what we can resonate with, right? Some of us genuinely feel trapped like we don't have options. We feel like I don't have any safe relationships where I can actually be honest about my marriage, how I feel about my children, secrets that I'm carrying. And not only do I not have that relationship or space, even if I did, who's to say that they're the expert and that their advice is the advice I should take, right? You want to know who's actually the greatest expert of your pain? You, right? It's so easy for someone else to be the consultant to your life because they're not living it. You know, you bring up your problem, they go, oh, you should just be doing this. Well, it's like, well, that's easy because that's what you think, but you're not in my shoes. You don't live with what I have. Some of us feel actually trapped because we don't have the insurance to actually get medication or to get the therapy that we need. And even if we did, we have no tools to even be able to endure the emotional overwhelm that would happen if we showed up. Maybe for some of us, it really is physical. We've tried, we've prayed, we've seen doctors, and there's nothing we feel can be done. And we are only, just like this man, waiting for the miracle of God himself. In fact, I would say many of us, in a spiritual sense, begin to blame ourselves spiritually. Well, it's because I'm not pressing into prayer enough. I don't have enough faith, and if I had faith, that God would do it. And then the problem we begin to do is it lies with me, and it's my defectiveness is the reason why that I am not healed or that I don't have a better life. In fact, even church leaders might even say, well, the reason why God's not blessing you is because your faith is so weak. You need to have more faith. And even the reason why they might say this is because it might threaten their view of God to have to say, I don't know why God hasn't moved on your behalf. Because I'm sure many of us, if God could or did or wanted to, we would be praying all the time for the type of healing. And many of us have tried this over and over, and it just doesn't feel like God is showing up or listening. And so we have leaders who are saying, well, it must be you, it must be you, it must be you. And what it feels like is a leader might wound you with their words, almost even disable you emotionally, so that you have to use them as a crutch. I'm going to wound you with my words so that you must depend on this space so that I can feel better about myself and the community of control that I'm building. And that's only some leaders. But I would argue most of us, if it's not God, the problem lies with me. But here's the reality. This man did not merit Jesus' healing. He did not earn it. He wasn't there long enough. Jesus learned of it, and in his compassion healed him because he loved him. I think many of us in here, we think there's purpose, reason, rhyme for why God has not done what he has not done. Or if he is going to heal me or soothe my emotional pain, it will be for a reason that he will use me for in the future. That's the biggest lie. One of the biggest lies is that God is going to heal me so that he can use me. God will not heal you so that he can use you. He will heal you because he loves you. We don't have children so they can perform and make money for us. We have children because we love them and enjoy relationship with them. And we don't want to see them hurting. This passage isn't complicated. Jesus learned of the man's suffering and chose to heal him. I believe the same is true of God. Jesus is the best representation of God that we have. He's moved to compassion, and he wants to. Which leads us to our second misinterpretation of this passage, is that every time in a one instant encounter or healing, we will all be healed. Every time I encounter Jesus or a one-time encounter with Jesus happens, there will be healing. Sadly, we can't make this case because what about everyone else who was at the pool? I think if we were to look at the story in modern day, there'd be microphones in Jesus' face saying, why didn't you heal everybody else? Why didn't you heal everyone else? And it'd be looked at as actually very mean and hurtful and unloving. Where we see this passage as very merciful and comforting. In fact, much to our, I believe, dissatisfaction, Jesus goes on later in this passage in John and begins to say, I only do what I see my Father doing, and this is what the will of God was doing. And so for some of us who maybe are struggling with physical illnesses or emotional illnesses, or whether it's bipolar, whatever it might be, for some of us, it just feels dissatisfying to maybe believe that God isn't in the business of our healing. But here's what we can say, is that a life in the compassion of Jesus is still better than a life without the compassion of Jesus. And for all that we don't know why God isn't working in our story, what we can say is that our attendance of bringing our hurt and our pain and disappointment to God is still better than not bringing any of it at all. And so the one question I do think we can interpret is that the man did have his eyes on this pool. He did have an expectation of how he should or ought to be healed, but Jesus had a different plan. So my question for you is, what if Jesus' healing plan was just different than yours? What if it didn't look how you thought it should? In fact, Jesus offers a condition to the man's healing later when he re-encounters the man who is healed later. And this one condition, I promise you, this Bible verse will not be hanging or framed in any living room or family room of yours. This condition will not be recited at weddings or quoted at funerals, because this condition is something that might actually make us feel very uncomfortable. Here it is. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said to him, "See, you're well. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." I'll be honest with you, I hope you don't like this verse as much as I don't like this verse. In fact, for me, I have a visceral hatred for the word sin. I really do. For me, the word sin is prepackaged with shame. It's prepackaged with the idea that you have wickedness and you're defective, and that it's your fault inherently in your nature, that you are the cause and reason of your own suffering, and God is not compassionate towards that. The word sin simply means to miss the mark. That's literally what it means. It means to miss the mark. And even for me in my journey, even 2019, it just felt like I had done everything possible to try to attain freedom, or what's called repentance. Repentance means to change your mind, to change your heart, and then to change your action. And I couldn't do it. And it was sin. And it was my fault and my problem. And for some of us, it feels like some of our sin, man, it may even feel inconsequential. But I actually love a kind of different definition that I heard from a pastor. His name's Rich Philotis. And he says that if Jesus' greatest commandment is to love God and love others, and that all of morality, meaning the law, the prophets, Old Testament, if all morality hangs on the idea that we need to love God and love others, then everything short of that is called sin. Simply meaning sin is a failure to love. Sin is a failure to love others and love God. It's a failure, a missing of the mark, if you will. In fact, I love the way that Paul, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, he kind of adds to this idea that some of us, we begin to experience some of the consequences of failing to love ourselves, God, and others. We begin to feel it internally, externally, and we have sorrow and pain. And Paul says it this way. He says, godly sorrow brings repentance, that word, a change of heart that leads to a change of action. And it leads to salvation and leaves no regret, but worldly sorrow brings death. There's no regret in changing our heart to enter into a lifestyle of love. But man, there is regret when we fail to live in a lifestyle of love. I don't know if you felt that. That whether it's with your children, your spouse, even at work, when you failed or you've been a bully, when you fail to live a lifestyle of love, it does lead to regret. See, I wonder if many of us, if we have this new definition, how it would change things for us. And as Jesus is encountering this man, he's making a differentiation. You can be maybe sick in your body and be rich in heart and in faith. But you can be healthy in your body and poor in soul and spirit. See, there are maybe worse things. Some of us know that the greatest suffering was in our ultimate moment of loneliness, where we felt like we had no love surrounding us. Godly sorrow is good. Because when pain has an attendance at the throne of Jesus, it becomes transformed, not transferred. Because if our pain doesn't work itself out with us and God, it will find a way to try to have it work itself out on our children, our spouse, the world. When our pain is consuming us, it becomes a source of our life that we can't help but act out of it. For me in my therapy journey, I learned that it was okay to accept that I would experience pain and suffering and unwanted emotions of all sorts. But not only was just processing part of my greatest healing, I would argue that one of my greatest healings was the acceptance of my wife in the moment of my greatest failures. It was actually having intimacy that I was loved and accepted, and this is exactly the point of the cross. Is that God accepts us in our failure to offer us eternal life. That Jesus died for sins, for our failures to love. He experienced the greatest suffering and hurt and pain so that we could actually have connection back into the loving fold of God. I did a lot of research because I wanted to understand this even from a scientific perspective. And one of my favorite researchers are marriage researchers called the Gottmans. And one of the things they did, they studied tons of marriages. And one of the things they looked at was marriages, they found how to help people in their bad marriages when they looked at healthy couples, not when they just looked at bad couples. They wanted to look at what healthy couples did, not just how bad couples failed. And what they found healthy couples did is, when other threats for other people or were threatening their marriage between them and their partner, these healthy couples would actually downplay the threat as someone who wasn't as good and elevate what they had with their partner. Healthy couples would rehearse and nurse gratitude and fondness and admiration of what they did have in their relationship. Whereas unhealthy partners would make negative comparisons of their spouse and then elevate those who are threatening. And they would nurse and rehearse views of their partner that were destructive and associated all of their actions, all of their behaviors, all of their faults to their character and to who they were as a person. I believe this translates and transposes to our relationship with God. What are we nursing and rehearsing? Are we rehearsing compassion that we've experienced at the throne of Jesus? Have we encountered Jesus just like the man in compassion? Have we encountered the compassionate Jesus to the point where that is something that we are nursing and rehearsing in our own lives, in our own failures? Or are we rehearsing a negative view of ourselves and how we're at fault and we're to blame and God should not love us or heal us because we haven't taken care of the problem? Are we making negative comparisons of us and elevating God? See, I think many of us, if we're honest, we're kind of looking at this whole subject we're talking about and we just wonder, what do I do then? And we're talking a lot about entering into a lifestyle of healing, a lifestyle of love. What do I do? What does that mean? Tell me where to start. And here's what I'd say. That if God is love and Jesus is compassion, and he demonstrates love by dying on a cross, don't miss this. Then I want you to understand that every unwanted action, shameful behavior, was ultimately you looking for love, safety, and belonging the whole time. At the core of everything you've ever done, or your partner's ever done, or your children have ever done, or your parents have ever done, was a search and a longing for love, safety, and belonging. Exactly what Jesus offers us through his death and resurrection on the cross in the gospel. Why did I stay with my partner for so long when they were so abusive and mean? Why did I stay opening up, being vulnerable, opening myself up to them when they just damaged and destroyed me? They weren't emotionally responsive. They weren't loving to our children. Why have I stayed so long? Why am I doing this to myself? Well, if you're looking for love, is it possible that you've stayed because some love is better than no love? And that even the moments of joy that you do have in connection is still better than the emotional abandonment, loneliness, and heartbreak that would happen if you didn't have them. And that tears are somewhat of a worthy price to pay, and suffering's a worthy price to pay to at least have some sort of love. And maybe that's why you stayed or have stayed. Why do I berate my children and force things on them? Why am I so mean and critical? Why do I react so much when they do things that bother me? Well, if you're looking for love, what if you're afraid that who they might become might be someone that you might not be able to love and experience connection with? Or if without your intervention in their life, maybe for you, they would begin to experience the type of suffering that you experience. And you'd never be able to live with yourself and love and accept yourself and have inner harmony. And so whether you like it or not or can control it or not, you react in force because you are really looking to love yourself and to love them and to experience love together. Why did I cheat? Why did I dance on the line of betrayal? Well, if you're looking for love, what if you never had the tools to be able to be honest with your partner about the things that are missing in your relationship, or you had some emotional injuries and trauma that happened in your marriage that made you believe you should never open up, or you had parents who never modeled love and safety in the same way, and for you, you've just grown up avoiding because that's what served you. It was easier to put duct tape on your marriage or your relationship. than it was to actually engage because you never saw it before. And that would be too overwhelming. And so for you, the sugar of someone else's love and attention was some love. And it was gravity and it was like a magnet. And even the people who have hurt and betrayed us, cheated, lied, abused, hurt us. Somewhere deep down, they were threatened by losing love in a relationship with us. And they needed to use force, power, control, abuse. Or somewhere in their life, they were threatened that they may never get love again, or they may never experience safety or belonging again. And they need to, by all means necessary, control things to try and get it, even at the expense of your own safety and consent. So if you're looking to enter into a lifestyle of love, why don't you start with the compassion of love of what you've been experiencing your whole life? That everything has just been a longing after that. And when your shame attends the throne of Jesus, you begin to see that that's what you've been seeking the whole time, and that's what he offers in intimacy with you. Why have you done what you've done? What if Jesus' plan to love you is different than the one you imagined? Father, we attend to your throne and we invite just a spirit and a sense of compassion for just our story and the story of the people who've hurt us, and that forgiveness is so hard to embrace, but Jesus, you know exactly what it costs to forgive. And God, as we sit in your presence here this morning, may we just begin to reflect on the ways that we feel broken, we feel hurting, we're terrified to engage. And God, may today we have the bravery and the courage to begin to encounter that maybe it was love that we were longing for the whole time. And what else could we have done? We didn't know any better. Even in our worst intentions were things that we feel shame over and guilt over. God, may we understand that this is your heart and this was perfected and shown by what Jesus has done. In your name, we thank you. Amen. Well, hey, we're about to enter in a moment of worship, and we're singing the song, Come to the River. And Jesus, and later in John, says that I am the river of life, that those who come and drink from me will never be thirsty, but they shall be fulfilled. And I want us to sing this as this invitation or this longing to drink from the well that is the peace and the love of Jesus in a lifestyle. Would you stand with us as we go into this time?
To the table.
that you are good. I will taste and see that you are good. You're good to me. I will taste and see that you are good. I will taste and see that you are good. I will taste and see that you are good. You're good to me. Oh, I will taste and see that you are good. I will taste and see that you are good. I will taste and see that you are good. Good to me. Come to the river, come to the river, taste and see. Come to the taste and see. Come to the river, come to the river, taste and see.
You know, this day might be really overwhelming for some of us because it's like, I do not feel like I have the courage. I don't feel like I can do any of this at all. And I just want to say that's so normal. It's not unusual at all to feel completely like overwhelmed, being like, I don't know if I'm even ready to start or make that decision. And I just want to say, it's okay. It's okay to not be ready. I think what's most important is the idea that the awareness of, man, like maybe there is something going on that I need to address, I think is the most important. And the idea that you can show up to God, to a compassionate Jesus who's looking and asking, do you want to get well? And it can be a journey, because it's going to be a journey. It's not going to be a one and done. That's the whole point. I think many of us think it's going to be the grand moment. It's going to be the one and done, but it is going to be a lifestyle. So either way, it's important to weigh and just wonder about, man, what is this going to look like and cost? And that's okay. But the real question is, do you want to get well? Because being well is not the same thing as being better, performing better, looking better for everyone else. Being well means, am I going to have inner harmony, peace that surpasses understanding, and a joy? And so for you, maybe you just want to even begin to think or pray about that. We have our prayer team that's down front. We'd love to have you join us in prayer and just even over things in your life that maybe feel like you're in some gridlock. And maybe for you, you're like, okay, I don't even want to do prayer. And maybe you're just like, I want to put this compassion into action. Please sign up at McCrest, which is a table in the back. It's for people who are experiencing homelessness in any stage of their life. And maybe you can help be that person who shows compassion and serving, just to allow them in the season of life to try to heal and better themselves as well. So please sign up in the lobby. And if you're new, please jump into any one of our groups and courses at all, just as we're trying to have people who want to get well. We have things like Celebrate Recovery. We have Alpha courses if you're feeling like you doubt your relationship with God. And we have men's ministries, 1829, students parents as well, for your teenagers. Please check out any of the tables in the back if you're looking to have some healing, a healing journey for yourself or for those who you love. So thanks so much. Join us next week for Questions Jesus Asked Part 3, where we ask, why are you so afraid? So take care. See you next week.